We want The Hobbit to be a visual experience that goes several steps beyond Lord of the Rings.
Fans of The Hobbit, they're going to get so much more. You'll get taken on an amazing ride.
So, this is The Hobbit. I cannot guarantee his safety. Understood?
You will see more of Middle-earth than you've ever seen before.
I think that people will see more than once. I know I will.
When we made The Lord of the Rings, I was absolutely sure that that was going to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I never realized that 10 years later, we were doing it all over again. We actually shot for 266 days on The Hobbit, which was exactly the same number of days that we shot on The Lord of the Rings. So I've sort of done the once-in-a-lifetime experience twice, but not a third time. There won't be a third time.
It was a little bit like returning to summer camp. You know, so many of the people who were part of the first journey are part of this journey. It's all coming back to me.
It was extraordinary coming back onto set with those same people. You looked around at all the faces in the crew and thought, here we go.
The same creative talent. 20 or 30 of the most senior people were Lord of the Rings veterans.
What a
would have
treat.
thought it would ever have happened again.
I know. To have a chance to return, pop the wig on and the feet on, it kind of feels like I've stepped into a time machine. And I get to meet all of these other actors who are coming along for the real long journey and sort of seeing in them a little bit what we felt like when we started.
The Hobbit is actually Professor Tolkien's most beloved book, and it's your first introduction to Middle-earth for a lot of readers.
The story of The Hobbit takes place 60 years before the events in The Lord of the Rings.
Bilbo Baggins. I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
We join Bilbo, as the book The Hobbit does, as a kind of home-loving, fairly solitary hobbit.
They like their comfort, they like their food, and they treat strangers with suspicion. So the worst thing that could happen in Bilbo Baggins' life is to suddenly be dragged off into a dangerous adventure.
Mr. Baggins?
At your service.
Fortune comes knocking on his door in the shape of 13 dwarves.
Far over the misty mountains cold. Far to the east, over ranges and rivers, lies a single solitary peak.
The dwarves' home is called Erebor, otherwise known as the Lonely Mountain. When you enter, you're in the middle of this vast subterranean palace carved out of solid rock.
Gold and jewels were the resource on which they built their dwarf kingdom.
There was this huge amount of gold which attracted the dragon, Smaug.
Dwarves try to defend Erebor, but there's nothing they can do. Erebor is literally ripped apart.
Since then, the dwarves have been a wandering people, and many of us have been homeless.
We will seize this chance to take back Erebor!
The dwarves that turn up at Bag End are the only volunteers that have decided to back this quest. 13 people.
You asked me to find the 14th member of this company, and I have chosen Mr. Baggins.
Me? No.
The one thing with hobbits is that they are very stealthy, and that's exactly the quality that Gandalf the Wizard is looking for.
You'll have a tale or two to tell when you come back.
Can you promise that I will come back?
No.
Which brings us to the question, why does he go then? And of course, why he goes is because he knows he will never ever have another opportunity like this.
Wait!
Whoa.
Welcome, Master Baggins, to the company of Thorin Oakenshield.
Thorin is a direct descendant of a line of kings that stretches almost back to the beginnings of the dwarvish race itself.
He's gone from prince to pauper, and he's a battle-hardened warrior. He has a fierce sense of honor, but he's been hardened by life, so his outer shell is pretty impenetrable.
The dwarves, they're an incredibly proud race. They have a fire in their blood. They would unnervingly take on any race.
They're the kind of people you'd want on your side in a fight.
We are very loyal, and we would do anything for our brothers.
They're very passionate, and they laugh 1 minute and then they fight the next minute, and then they like hug the next minute. So they're very, you know, they're up front with their emotions.
One of the scary things about adapting The Hobbit is the fact there's 13 dwarves. And differentiating those characters was important.
Like he said, never trust an elf.
In the book, it's really only 3 or 4 of the dwarves that are kind of expanded in any real way. Gimli in the first film has a very distinctive look, but when you have 13 dwarves in scenes, if they all look the same, it's going to be very difficult for the watching audience.
Everyone is very different in a very individual way. It's, yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to do anything. I just stick on the costume, thank God.
I think it's probably a couple of thousand drawings were made. Millions of different ideas, running all over the place.
If they were all standing on a mountainside, you had to know who they were, just from the shape.
That's great. This is the best part of the whole job.
You're not funny. It's supposed to be a light spritz.
It is.
Oh, no.
Each dwarf has his own look and his own style and their own weapons.
Shut your mouth!
We managed to invent all kinds of interesting methods of warfare. Some fun, some lethal, or some fun, but all lethal.
In the end, Pete fell in love with each and every one of those characters. And as much as there's a little bit of dwarf in Peter, I think there's a little bit of Peter in all those dwarfs.
Here we go, rotate.
The wonderful thing about Peter and his team is that they make it the book and something else.
People always say, well, it's this very relatively slight novel, and so how come it's 3 movies? The Hobbit was almost a lifetime's work for Tolkien.
We went into the appendices, which you find at the end of The Lord of the Rings, and you learn very specifically about events that occurred in The Hobbit.
We're actually expanding The Hobbit, but using Tolkien's notes in the appendices very much as our blueprint.
Gandalf, where are you going?
Gandalf in The Hobbit, he's often away doing other business, and quite what that is not revealed in the novel. In the films, we get to see what Gandalf was up to when he wasn't on the journey.
Tolkien, he created a whole world, the different creatures or people who live in that world, and real history stretching back thousands of years.
There's going to be some new characters that are part of Tolkien's story that people haven't thought about.
The dark part has found a way back into the world.
Excitement looms.
Well, Radagast is a wizard. One of the 5.
We know that he's an animal-loving, forest-dwelling wizard. Your mind instantly goes to a ragged hermit-type figure.
But he loves the animals and the birds in the bushes.
I'll draw them off! Go!
Oh, dear, oh, dear.
Radagast, he's all here in his heart. It's not perhaps quite all there.
The trees! They're diseased!
Radagast discovers that something's going wrong in his immaculate forest. Trees are dying, animals are dying.
Something's wrong, something's terribly wrong.
Middle-earth seems to be just beginning to rumble and tumble.
For 400 years, we have lived in peace.
Are we at peace? Orcs attacked us on the road.
As part of the expanded Middle-earth universe, Tolkien came up with the idea of the White Council, which is the United Nations of Middle-earth to some degree.
Gandalf, Elrond, Galadriel, Saruman, they play a role in illuminating those sort of broader political landscape.
The White Council. They represent enormous power. There's suspicion amongst all of them that there's this building power of evil getting stronger and stronger.
It has to be more than just the dwarves' quest, because their quest is being affected by Middle-earth events and the rise of evil.
Seeds being planted for what eventually becomes the time period that we meet in Lord of the Rings, that lead to the great fight for Middle-earth.
If you watch then this suite of films in their entirety, it's wonderful that Peter's able to weave those subtle connections between the films.
One of my favourites is an older Bilbo telling children the tale of his run-in with 3 large mountain trolls.
So there I was, at the mercy of 3 monstrous trolls.
The great thing about The Hobbit is we get to see it.
Bilbo's encounter with the 3 trolls, William, Bert and Tom, is one of the most iconic passages from the book, and it was something we were really looking forward to bringing to the screen.
3 of us dwarves, Mark, myself and William, are portraying the trolls as well.
There were 3-4 days there with Peter on the mocap studio, and we had a tremendous time there, just being in our grey suits.
Are we having horse tonight or what? Shut your cake hole.
They're like a really dysfunctional group of 3 flatmates.
Directing is partly the same, really, apart from the fact that the actors look rather silly. I mean, who would want to walk around all day with a camera pointed right at their nose?
The process of getting the trolls animated, we take the data that's been tracked from the mocap stage, and then we started refining that motion, and it was the first time we saw trolls actually verbalising.
Now, are there any more of you little fellas hiding where you shouldn't? Make him squeal!
Out of this colourful group of dwarves and wizards, and there's elves, and the story of The Hobbit is to take Bilbo, as played by Martin Freeman, the young, conservative, very safety-conscious Bilbo, and to see him transform.
I have never used a sword in my life. He finds a bravery that he didn't know he had, and he finds a sort of nobility that he didn't know he had. And none of the others knew he had.
Throughout the course of the quest, Bilbo surprises the dwarves at every stage.
Bilbo goes on the journey, and he's changed forever.
Was lost.
Yes, and I want to get unlost as soon as possible.
Now keep your distance. I'll use this if I have to.
I can't wait to see it. That beautiful book that Tolkien wrote in 1937 come alive for people.
There's a team here that have their heart and soul into creating something very, very special.
We all have this common goal. We want this to be a film that has this lasting impact on people because it is such a good story.
Whatever age you are, trying to remember the sense of awe you had as a child. Hopefully you will leave with that awe firmly in place.
It's magic, pure magic, and you believe it.
Going back to Middle-earth, probably for the last time on the big screen, it's going to be a huge thrill.
For the fans, these films are a return to a world that is both familiar but also entirely unexpected.
I'm going on an adventure!
Step into the world, step into Middle-earth, come on this adventure with us.